Hey guys, my name is Brianna, as I said, and thanks for having me. So we have two special guests today. Emma Lawrence, who once was a sports fan but is now a Fox Sports news reporter and presenter, which is pretty cool. And our second special guest is Madeline Ibrahim. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, who is a digital and video coordinator for the New South Wales Swifts netball team. So welcome, guys. I don't think I gave you the rap that you fully deserved. So Emma, if you'd like to just introduce yourself a little bit and give us a little bit of a rundown of your life in the sports media industry, that'd be awesome.
Okay, thank you for having me. So I went to UTS. Feels like a long time ago now that I was there. It was a lot of fun. I think 2009 to 2011, and it was great. I did the Bachelor of Arts in Comms, and I actually did public communication as my major, but then I did some journalism electives as well. And then in my final year, I did the internship subject, which I'm pretty sure everyone had to do. And I did my internship at the Parramatta Eels, so as their digital coordinator. So I was writing stories for their website, interviewing players, that type of thing, which was lots of fun. And rugby league was always one of my main sports that I loved, along with netball, which I played growing up. And so from there, I worked at the Eels for another sort of 9 months. And then I started at Fox Sports News. So my first job there was the scrolling ticker at the bottom of the screen, all of those news updates. I basically did that, and the Twitter account. So that was a junior reporter role. And I basically did that for about, I think, 2 years, and then eventually just kind of worked my way up and eventually got to voice packages with like highlights of the footy, that type of thing. And I got to go out and interview players at training and games, and then do sideline for rugby league games, that type of thing. So yeah, just kind of all started from there. I still do a little bit with Fox, but I'm also with Channel 10 News at the moment. And then I also work for Triple M as well. So I do, on a Saturday, I do their rugby league show. So do like 3 hours just chatting all the games and the big issues. And then I'm a sideline reporter for a couple of their games per week. So it means in footy season, it's a pretty busy schedule, but then it's a bit better during the off season. So yeah, it's lots of fun, but it all started at UTS, which was great.
That's pretty cool. Something I think a lot of us can aspire for and have a lot of opportunities out there. Mads, do you want to give us a little bit of a rundown of what your last few years have looked like?
Sure, less exciting and glamorous than Emma's, but we're here. So I did a Bachelor of Comms in Media Arts and Production at UTS from 2014 to 2016. And from there, kind of took a while to find my feet in terms of what I wanted to do with my career. I mean, I found the degree was really good for what it was specifically about, which was kind of filmmaking and stuff like that. And I realized I didn't really want to be the next Steven Spielberg or anything, but I did take away a lot of good skill sets from there, and it helped me understand where I wanted to go. So from there, I kind of had a year of fluffing around, trying to find different internships and experiences that would help me realize what I wanted to do. So I did an internship in a digital role at the Rugby Union Players Association. I also did a internship at the UTS Sparks netball team. That was kind of my own doing. It wasn't really anything going, like, you know, that was just one example of how I kind of tried to make something work for myself. Then ended up going, I want to go into radio. So I studied at the Australian Film Radio Television School and did a diploma of radio essentials. And weirdly enough, like Emma, found myself in radio casually doing street team work, which was really nothing to do with a degree necessarily, but you do pick up skills like people skills, and I got to edit stuff on Instagram and whatnot. And then that kind of led me to thinking, I think I can do social media, because I've always been really into editing videos, whether it was for jobs or just for fun and family. And again, that degree at UTS really helped me with my skill set in terms of editing. I did do a lot of self-teaching and stuff, but it was the foundation of those skills. And then I found myself applying for multiple social media jobs and ended up at the Swifts, which is really good as a netballer and someone very interested in sport. So that's where I am now, doing the video and social media.
Wow, don't sell yourself short there, Mads. That's incredible. That sounds like a lot's been done. So I'm just going to pick your brain a little bit more and ask a few questions. But Emma, the first one's for you. Obviously, what looks like to be such a glamorous job in front of the camera, sometimes what can be the most challenging part about it?
Ooh, there are a lot of challenging parts of this industry, and yeah, I think everyone automatically thinks it's very glamorous, but I think one of the toughest things is it's so competitive and there really aren't that many jobs out there, which means a lot of the time, I know my friends who studied various other courses, they just went straight in and found jobs straight away, whereas there are a lot of people who, particularly in sport, but I think journalism in general, in this day and age, the industry is shrinking. So that's not to say that you shouldn't aspire to go into that. There are certainly jobs available, but it just means more so than other industries, I think it's all about hard work. So I did so much unpaid work. So not only I did, and that's just kind of what you have to do. And those people who end up sort of working their way up, they have done so much unpaid work, and those that kind of kick stones and think they're too good for that, they never really end up getting anywhere. And it sucks at the time. You think for example, even once you get a job. So I did plenty of internships. The main one was at the Eels, which even once that was part of my uni course, but then for the first 9 months after that, I was still doing that unpaid. So I did that. I tried a couple of other internships too, actually, I should point out, in different industries. I did want to do sport, but I did do something at a financial PR firm, a little bit of work at Minter Ellison as well, the law firm, in comms there. So I always thought I wanted to do sport, but I did just try a little bit of that stuff for about a year. But then things, even once you get into, so once I got my foot in the door at Fox, I wanted to try really hard to start doing on-camera work after a couple of years. And essentially they've got plenty of on-camera reporters. So, why would they put me? So you had to kind of come up with something so I came up with a concept to do. We didn't do a lot of netball at the time, even though we had the rights to the netball. So came up with a concept to do a little segment each week with Shani Layton. So we did a little preview and review thing each week. But then I had to come in, if I wanted to be able to do that, and show to them that I could do stuff on camera, or at least work my way up to doing that. I had to come in and spend, at least a full day off doing that, but then at least another half a day sort of prepping and organising, that type of thing. So that was just one example. And then once you get to doing that sort of stuff with news, then I thought, okay, one of my other goals a couple of years later was to do sideline reporting for the rugby league coverage. But I was working in news at the time, and rugby league, that was a separate department. So again, they've got tons and tons of sideline reporters, so why would they give me a go? Then eventually they said, well, you can do, I just kept hounding them and said, I'd love to somehow be involved. They'd say, oh yeah, but we'll let you know if something comes up. And then eventually, I think after about 18 months of just emailing the bosses, again, because it was a different department, they said, okay, well, you can do the sideline for the under 20s and the reserve grade, but we don't have budget. But if you want, you can do it for free. So I did that for 2 years. So I did 2 games a weekend, unpaid, for 2 years, essentially. And the thing is, a lot of people would say, oh, why would you do that? You've been to uni, you've been working in the industry for 5 years now. You don't need to do unpaid work. But that was the only kind of way to move forward. And I know other industries might not be like that, but that's just the nature of what it is. And the way I only started doing the first grade games is because, there was one day there were a couple of them were sick and a couple of them were away, and they thought, oh, well, Emma's been doing the 20s for a couple of years, so let's put her in. So, yeah, I would say that's one of the toughest things, is that there's a lot of unpaid work, and at times you can get down and think you're not going to move ahead. But I just think the people who put in the hard work, it sounds very cliched, but honestly, after being in the industry for 8 or 9 years, they're the ones who end up being successful. So I'd say don't get, and I've had a few chats to friends or even people that have, a couple of people have reached out to me, say on Instagram, and asked for advice as well and say they can't get jobs. But I think just hounding people that you may not know, and you feel like a pest, but you just have to do that. So hounding news directors at various papers or TV networks, asking to catch up for a coffee, that type of thing, because it's very much an industry where they don't usually advertise for jobs as much. So if you've reached out for coffee with someone and you've come in and you've observed and maybe you've done a shadow shift here or there unpaid, when something does pop up, you're the one to get it. They're not going to go through the process of, advertising. And I mean, occasionally they do, but a lot of the time it's someone who already has their foot in the door. So yeah, I would say meet with people for coffees. Pardon?
I'll be hounding you and sliding into your DMs.
Yeah, so lots of slide into everyone's DMs in a professional way, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously, being in such a male-dominant industry, what's it like leading the way for females in sport? And obviously that's a major challenge because everyone, well, not everyone, but there's a lot of males in that industry. What's it like?
Yeah, I think it's changed a lot over the last, I would say, even 2 to 3 years. There are a lot more females involved, especially in rugby league, which is great. But I think it is tough because when I think it's harder as a female to prove yourself. I think a lot of the time, the guys in the industry, whether they be the news directors or the reporters, they would think, oh, what do you know about rugby league? You just want to be on TV. So they might not say that directly, but you certainly get that vibe. And at times it kind of can crush your confidence and think, and that makes a massive difference, because I think particularly being on TV, it's a lot about your mindset. And if you're not feeling confident because you think all of these guys are judging you, you're not going to perform as well. So I think, but again, it's just about being like trusting that you know your stuff, and hopefully you do if you're in an industry where that's your sport. So and I would say that too, don't pick a sport. I know there have been people along the way, like females, if they want to get ahead, and so they'll say, oh, I'll do that sport. No one really does that. But then if you don't really know anything about that sport, they end up getting found out. And that's when people will say, well, because they might not have ever watched, for example, AFL in their life, but just something like that. So I would say make sure if you're going to focus on a particular sport, I grew up with rugby league, so and netball, so I loved those. So just trust that you know your stuff, and don't get despondent if you think that, because there will be people out there that judge you. You can say, no, everyone thinks you're great. Well, it's tough, everyone, especially when it's competitive. There will be people thinking, she doesn't know what she's talking about. So, but not whether you're male or female. So I just think, yeah, and if anything, over the last few years, because there are more females involved, then you find sometimes, and even now, I mean, I've been, working for I think maybe 8 or 9 years in the industry. And even now, sometimes I think, even when I got put on the Saturday Triple M show, when I first got put on it, I'd been working at Triple M for 2 years, been doing their sideline reporting. And I did think, well, the guys think I'm just there as a token female. And I'd already been working a lot in rugby league. I'd done sideline at Fox, but even then I thought, the former players will be judging me thinking I'm the token female. But I just think you have to, it's all about your mindset. You try to not worry about that and just trust yourself and be confident and work really hard to prove that you do know your stuff. So yeah, it is challenging, but very rewarding as well. And then when you do prove yourself, you can have great relationships with all of the males and females in the industry. So yeah, it can be tough at times.
Thank you. Mads, I'll just ask you, obviously someone coming from a little bit more behind the scenes in sports media, what are the challenges and opportunities that arise for you?
So I just wanted to reiterate just on Emma's point of like, I will get to your question, but just saying unpaid work it sucks, but you got to grin and bear it, and you've got to take every opportunity. And even when they don't come, you've just got to make them. The amount, like the pestering, it works. The just dropping like the little, oh, I'm into that social media stuff, or I'm into, presenting, like just dropping those little hints, it does get you somewhere, and you will find someone who will give you an opportunity and will give you the chance, and then they're your connection and they're your foot in the door. For the job I'm at now, I mentioned, because when I was working in the radio for Street Team, I was at Triple M too, and like Emma, I'm a big rugby league girl, and dropped hints like, hey, if anyone needs any help. Ended up having this really lovely lady who was like in charge of digital content, and then she got me in to do one day, and that turned into a casual basis, and that turned into, you can come in for all the rugby league games, blah blah blah. And then she actually knew the person whose job I took at the Swifts, so like weird, because then she was like, oh, I'm gonna message the person who's hiring you and be like, and praise you. So like that was weird how that worked out, but honestly it pays off, and I have paid my dues, believe me. But yes, so in terms of the challenges I'm facing, like I kind of face with my job, it's hard because there is so much work that goes on behind the scenes, and being the social media person who say you upload a 2-minute video and people go, oh cool, like, and that's it. And like, I'm like, oh, I spent 3 days on that video. So it is really rewarding, but it's hard when people don't see the hard work. And I think some people underestimate how much work you do, or how much creativity you put into it, and how much thought that goes into it. Like sometimes I'm planning a video for a week in advance, and then I put that video out there and it's like, thanks, good job, it's cool. So as much as it is rewarding, it is hard not getting the initial validation, the validation, sorry, you're after. I think it's a big confidence game as well. I found it really hard early days putting my content out there. I remember making videos just from 15 and up and not even wanting to show people. And then if I got that initial like, oh, that's good, I'm like, oh, cool, thank you. I can show other people happily now. So it is a big confidence game. So it was hard early on to be like, hi boss, this is my first video. But you are putting yourself into the work as well. So you've just, the challenge is to be confident with it and back yourself. Find your point of difference. I've always said, and I sell myself in interviews by saying like, my forte is my creativity and my humor, and that you wouldn't necessarily think matches up with my job, or in terms of like, I work for a netball team. You're like, how's that going to help? But it's actually lately been the content I've created that is funny has been our most successful content in the like year I've been there. So if you can be the point of difference, and you can and make the challenges work for you, if that makes sense, find a solution that works for you, I think that makes you the best employer you can be. So there are many challenges, but sometimes you just gotta find your way out of them.
Is one of the challenges, do you ever get starstruck by the athletes you work with?
Me?
Yeah.
I do, yeah. I did early days, and I wasn't even, like, I've played netball all my life, but I didn't necessarily follow the Suncorp Super Netball. I knew it through friends who were really big on it. But then when I first met them, I was like, oh, hi. Because they're a lot of the girls my age as well. And it's like, oh, I want to be friends with you. Kind of feeling as well, but it is a bit starstruck because like these are international players like representing England, Australia, New Zealand. So it is starstruck. It was a challenge early on because I would be hesitant to like ask for say an interview, or can I have a photo of you or content of you, but now I'm a bit more calm about it.
That's pretty cool. Do you think if you worked in a industry with males, do you think your role would be different? Or even if in an industry with both females and males athletes?
I think it would be incredibly different. I think working in a sport that's, I think working in a male sport would be, sorry, I had an answer for this before, would be really, it would be rewarding, but I think it's even more rewarding working for a female sport, because in a sense, male sport's been established, that the awareness is out there, the exposure is, they've got that. Say for your NRL, it's your AFLs. Or I think women's sport is still growing. So I think I have to be really wary of what content I'm putting out as well. Whereas I think working for a male sport, because they're established, you don't need to send out not send out messages, important messages, but you don't need to focus or prioritize those messages of, say, having confidence, or taking on a sport and maintaining the sport, or, you know, that idea of like, you can be a mum, you can be this and still play a sport. Whereas, so I think there's a lot more pressure. I actually, to an extent, think it might be easier to do this role for an established male sport. And it's also hard. It's kind of linking back to the challenges in terms of working for a female sport. You have to be wary of every single thing you put out. We saw that example last year with the AFL. I think it was Taylor Harris, and that photo went out of her, and it was an incredible photo of her like kicking a ball. And if a male, there's so many photos of male AFL players in that position, which no one would blink an eye at. But in this world, unfortunately, we're not mature enough. Some of us are not mature enough to take a photo like that in women's sport, and I have to monitor it every day. I get so many action shots, and they're just not flattering. And as much as I just want to go, oh, look how physical and rough this game looks, you know, because there's a lot of comments out there that say, you know, netball's not very athletic, or it's a glamour sport, it's not physical enough, and you'd want to put these photos out there, but you're like, oh, she's going to get a comment on her face, or you can see her shorts under her dress. There's going to be some kind of controversy or drama around it. So it is, I think, harder in this role for a women's sport than I think it would be for a men's sport.
Cool. Well, Lisa just dropped a comment saying she loves your work and she's a fan of the Swifts, so keep it up, Mads. I'm going to ask Emma another question, if that's okay. Just obviously working in an industry where all your work is visible to everyone virtually at any time, what's it like? Like, what's the responsibility like? What's the pressure like? Just give us a little bit of insight into that.
Yeah, I think whether or not, I think the pressure is whatever you put on yourself. So I've had to work really hard over the last even couple of years to not be so critical of everything I do. So I would basically, every time I would do a live cross or whatever I would do, I would go back and look at it, and I would watch it so many times, and I find every time I would look at it, I would find something else that was wrong with it. So I would say, oh, my hair looks really bad there. Oh, why did I say that? I stumbled on that word. And I would constantly pick out all of the negative things. And you know what? No one is, I think from a lot of people that I've spoken to in the industry about this, no one is as critical as we are on ourselves. And I've had to work really hard on that, but you do feel the pressure because you feel like lots of people are watching. But I guess it's just something that I had to get to the point where I would do something and then not allow myself to look back at it, at least straight away, but maybe a couple of days later. I think it's definitely important to go back for growth and improvement, to be able to look at your stuff. And I found that especially I had a lot of voice training. So when I was at Fox Sports News, I got to a point where I moved from just doing the ticker at the bottom of the screen to doing the highlights packages. I was allowed to write the stories, and I was allowed to edit the video. So a lot of people don't realize, they think we just do the interviews, but we'll actually, now you have to be multi-skilled. So you have to be able to edit the video yourself. So you cut up the highlights on the software, you write your script on one screen, you have the software on the other screen, you're editing at the same time. So I was allowed to do.
Sorry. Do you receive content for that, or do you have to write it yourself? Are you given like a certain, you're given certain things you have to say, or it's completely up to you?
No, you would write it. So this is if you're reporting. So if I'm on a story, so whether it's say, I used to do more highlights packages. Say when I was working at Fox Sports News, I would sit and you'd be watching the footy game and you'd be writing the story as you go. So Tigers got off to a good start, and then you would go, okay, I want that try, this angle, and you'd put it down on your timeline. So you'd be writing and cutting, then you'd go voice. In 10 minutes, you'd voice a couple of lines and you'd put that into your timeline. Then you'd keep writing. and you'd ask anyone, did I miss anything? You'd run to the voice booth again, and you'd have to have it all done by the time the game finished. About 2 minutes after, your story has to be all ready to go, where it's saying, the Tigers get their 5th straight win, and then it finishes with your sign off, Emma Lawrence, Fox Sports News. So you have to do all of that. And a lot of my friends didn't realize that all that vision, the voicing, you're doing all of that at the same time. So that's what I did a lot of at Fox Sports News. At Channel 10, I'll more now go out and I might go out and interview someone. So it's a bit hard with COVID at the moment, but you go out and interview a player. I don't know, they might have a milestone game coming up. You interview them, you come back, you listen to the interview, you pick out which answers you want to put to air, and then you sort of write your script around that. And same sort of thing, except it's not on the go like with a game. You can sit down, you might have your couple of hours before your bulletin to do it, but even still you're picking all the vision you want, you're picking which answer you want. So you've got your 2 screens going at once when you come back to your computer. But that's when you're reporting. If you're presenting, that's when a reporter has written something for you, and you get up, you'll read through all of the scripts and you'll approve it, and then you jump up on set. So, and then you sort of read everything in the auto cue. So that role's a little bit different. I only really more so now at Channel 10 fill in. I mainly do reporting and then do a bit of presenting. So yeah, it's you kind of have to be. Back in the day when I started at Fox, all the reporters could only do interviews and write. No one edited video, but it's just the nature of the industry now. With cost cutting, you have to be multi-skilled. And actually, Fox Sports News, my last year there, we merged with Sky. And again, to cut costs, they cut some cameramen. So we had to learn to use a camera ourselves as well. So we had to go out and shoot a press conference, ask the questions, come back, write the story, voice it, do the video. You had to be able to do all of that. You had to be able to jump up and read the news. You had to kind of do everything. So I think it's becoming an industry, where you can't just be a writer. You can't just read it. No one ever just reads the auto cue. Anyone is getting up and is presenting has done all of that. Everyone has done the writing, the editing, out on the road doing interviews, that type of thing. So yeah, I kind of forget what the original question was because I went off on a tangent.
No, that's okay. That was really, really interesting. I actually that's something I really aspire to do. So it's good to hear everything, but my brain's like overflowed now. I didn't know it was that much work. Mads, obviously you're doing a lot of the behind the scenes editing and that sort of stuff. What sort of programs do you use? Emma, feel free to jump in if you have any additional programs, but what do you use to clip everything together and that sort of stuff?
So at the moment, I'm all over Adobe. So Premiere Pro is my go-to video editing. If you guys haven't got Adobe, invest, get a license. I think UTS can help you out with Adobe licensing. Do it, teach yourself Premiere because that's kind of the top end. I started with like your iMovies and your Movie Maker, and then got Final Cut Pro, which is a really good in between if anyone's just looking to learn skills, and then it's a really good lead into Premiere. But Premiere for video editing, Photoshop, After Effects, which is something that I've only just familiarized myself with. I went to a 2-day course earlier this year, and now pretty much sufficient in basic skills there. So would also recommend After Effects if you're really looking to be a big video editor. After Effects and Premiere are your go-tos. And then say if I have to do anything music-wise or voice-wise, I will use Audition or Pro Tools. And yeah, they're my main programs at the moment.
Wow.
And add more I didn't have.
I just had a question. I think that just ties into that a little bit. She said, I've noticed you went to the Australian Film, Television and Radio School. How did that differentiate from UTS, like your UTS degree? And did that add value to your career pathway?
100%. I loved AFTRS. I think because, you come out of high school and you kind of choose your degree. And I think some people really know where they're at and what they want to do. And other people are a bit oh, I think I want to do this. And I was kind of in that boat. And I actually thought at the time that my degree did incorporate radio. And I think I found along the way that it wasn't specific enough for me, and realized how much I loved radio. Thanks, Hamish and Andy, for that inspiration. Was literally my main inspirations and the exact reason why I wanted to get into radio. But then when because that was kind of a year after, so I graduated in 2014, kind of had that 2015 year of what am I doing with my life? And then 2015 went to ActivateUTS, and it was so good. It was so specific for radio, which I know, funny enough, I'm not in radio, but that's a whole other story. Not that I wasn't looking for radio jobs. I was looking for radio jobs at the same time I got this job as well. But that did incorporate stuff in social media as well, and video editing. And that really helped me. Like I learned about Pro Tools there, and just simple things like matching music, like say cutting up music and putting it together if your song's too long and you want it to shorten it up. I learned how to actually do that properly via Pro Tools. So that makes it easier now when I edit my videos and I'm like, oh, I can shorten this video rather than just guessing. Like I learn about beats and 1, 2, 3, 4 and all this stuff, like little bits and pieces. But and I think that just gave me so much confidence in the radio school as well, because I also learned that I'm probably not best on air. And I didn't like myself on air, but I did like behind the scenes stuff. So if it wasn't social media and video editing, I would have loved to do producing. But it all kind of intertwines in the media industry. I'm sure, as Emma said, like I was completely shocked when Emma just said that she was doing the voice and the journalistic part of it, and then the video editing. Like that's amazing to me. So as you can see, it all intertwines.
Yeah. And I'll just say though, just listening to what you were saying, it's the editing that I'll do is absolutely doesn't even compare. So for a highlights package or an interview just that you've done on a player, it's very basic. So it's just kind of, they might be coming back from an injury and you've got, the shot of them getting injured and then another shot of them, getting carried off or whatever. It's basic stuff. It's not the music. It's not the effects. It's no. Not that stuff. So
I still think it's really like admirable. Like that includes timing and like even basic skills. Like that does take time. Like it's longer to put a video together than like type it. So if you were getting that done really quickly, like that's impressive. Yeah,
it's so when we do feature stories, if you do these long sort of like the 5-minute sit downs, these big special ones, we have the trained editors like yourself that will do all of that, the effects and the music. But yeah, it did take a while, I think, for a lot of reporters that came in to pick up how to do it, because even just things like just basic things like that you wouldn't have learned because they didn't think they had to do that. So not going from a tight to a tie, you got to go from the wide shot of the stadium to, the close up of the player and, all of that sort of stuff about knowing that. And you kind of, well, I certainly hadn't learned any of that, but it's a great skill to have. And as the industry is changing, honestly, the more skills you have, the better off you're going to be. So honestly, I know I kind of mentioned it before, but those that if they think all they can do is write or all they can do is kind of present, you won't last. You need to be able to do a number of different things.
So you guys both have just talked about how competitive the industry is, and obviously the media is rapidly growing, and our lives are so focused on technology and staying up to date in the media. Do you ever find it really stressful to balance work life like away from your job, but it's also like, sorry, I don't think I worded that very well, but our lives are so on our phone all the time, and obviously technology and media based. Do you ever find that difficult to balance work and then life away from work?
Yes, I do. That's one of the biggest challenges that I found. It's because the news cycle is 24/7 at the moment. So things are breaking at night. The reporters have a story that will go up online at 10 p.m. So you have to be across that, and you might get an email from your boss saying, oh, let's get an interview with that person in the morning because a story just came out saying they want to leave the Bulldogs or something like that. So it is really hard. And I found it particularly hard. I mean, for 6 years, my boyfriend worked at the same industry as well. So you kind of come home and that's all you talk about. And then all the shows you'd watch are NRL 360 or the footy shows. And so it's just footy. And then I remember a friend asked me one time, oh, what else, like, what do you do when you're not at work? It's like, oh, I watch NRL 360. Like, oh, what else? Like, do you watch anything else? Like, oh, no. I might watch the footy. And then I thought, oh my gosh, I don't do anything. I just go to work and I come home and I watch the shows about footy. That's all I do. So over the last 18 months, I've had to, try to make a massive effort into, okay, you've got to have, I know I went on about working hard, but you've also got to have time for yourself. And I never really got that. I always just thought, okay, no, it's always work. But it doesn't have to be, it's just like small things, that a little thing, it might be coming home and I've started this year, which I'd never tried before, doing a bit of meditation if I had a long day, or just something different, having, your Netflix show that you can come home and watch, and just something to switch off, because I find it is really, really difficult to switch off. But even just a small bit of time, it makes you so much more productive. So you do have to make sure you have a bit of balance in there. And I found for a couple of years, because I went 2 years where I was doing basically 7 days a week. So I had no days off and I never saw my friends. And it got me to the point, okay, I and a lot of that was at the time I had to do free work, and it got me to where I was. But then also you have to also be conscious that you got to schedule in time. You might not have time to see your friends because you're working, but having a phone call to them or things like that. So yeah, I struggled for a couple of years where I wasn't talking to my friends as much. It was just rugby league. That's all my life was. I honestly couldn't name anything else I did other than something related to rugby league. So yeah, I would say make sure you still focus on the relationships in your life and have something else which you do for you, even if it's just one small thing. It might only be 5 minutes a day, but that would be my advice. And it took me 10 years to realize that, but finally got there.
It was all worth it. What about you, Mads?
This is a tricky one because I think Em's in a much more demanding kind of job in terms of working on like news and stuff. And I think I found it has been hard especially in COVID times. The netball has been, for those who don't know, like we are literally finding out what's happening tomorrow the day before kind of thing, in terms of we've got like a hub going on. We don't have the whole draw. We don't know where we're playing. The girls might be moving to a different state. Like everything's a bit crazy. So I kind of want to know instantly like news. So I do find myself checking if I'm going to bed, or if I'm like waking up straight away, I'm like, what's the news? I'll even be at netball training and I'm like checking my emails during training, and people are like, you're on your emails again. I'm like, yeah, because I'm waiting for news. Like, but I think when I am expecting news like that, it's not that I find it hard, but I'm so anxious that I want to know, just because that's just who I am. I'm a very anxious, anxiety-ridden person. I don't necessarily find it a hindrance. It is like I don't think I would classify it as a challenge for me, because it does come with so many positives in terms of like I can go on Instagram right like any time of the day, midnight, whatever, check a post I uploaded at 12 o'clock. And yes, that is me kind of, I guess, not doing work, but I'm checking the insights, I'm checking the reach, the engagement, the views, the comments. And as much as I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this, like I should be going to bed or something, but I like to know where I'm at, and I like the ease and easy access to my phone to just be like, oh, what's my competitors doing at this time? What are another sporting organization around the world, like that's awake now, what are they doing on their game day? So I guess I'm kind of always on, and I'm always looking for content. And like a way I've kind of counteracted that is like, if I see something I like, say on Instagram, I have like how you can save posts on Instagram? I save it to a folder that's like cool content, like stuff like that. So then I can revisit it back on like work hours. But I'm not necessarily, I find at the moment, but as I said, I've not had a normal, like I've been here for a year. I've not had a normal netball season where I've got to go to games on a weekend because of the hub situation. I'm not up in Queensland with the team. So I always want to make sure everything's going right though. So I never really switch off, but I'm not finding it necessarily affecting me. Like I'm not constantly worrying about it, if that makes any sense.
It definitely does. No, this will be my last question, but then I know some other people have some questions which we can answer. But just for some advice towards anyone aspiring to enter the industry that you guys are in, like anything you guys have to say about them. Did you guys have any mentors that you looked up to that gave you some real advice that's really stuck with you through these years? Emma, you can go first if you'd like.
Yes, I think I found a couple of mentors kind of once I did get my foot in the door. So there's a presenter and commentator at Fox League. His name's Matt Russell, and he was always great to me. And I would show him when I started presenting, I would show him clip up a little bit, and he would say, you know, need to be a bit more relaxed, or, you know, whatever it might be. And I would always go and take stuff to him. And then when I started doing sideline reporting in the beginning, or the pre-game questions you'd have to ask the coaches, I would show him beforehand and see what he thought. And he would say, oh, maybe word this one this way. So that type of thing. So I think I think mentors are crucial. So it might be hard to find one. You might not have one straight away. You might in your first job not have one, but I just think where you can, just pick the brains of as many people as you can, because you just need to learn as much as possible. And I think actually when I was also a junior reporter and I was just doing the ticker at the bottom of the screen, then there was another presenter at the time. His name was Ben Way, and I used to start doing practice scripts. So when I had a little bit of time, I'd do a script as if I was doing the highlights package, and I'd take it over to him. And honestly, every line, it ended up just being like crosses through it. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get there. But it makes you better. So I would think just ask, don't be embarrassed to reach out to someone, whether you're working with them now or whether you want to work in an organization. Reach out, ask for help, ask for advice. And also we touched on it before, just do as much as you can to get in where you want. So pester. I did that with all my jobs. I did that with Triple M as well. I sat next to the boss at the time at the Dally M's. He was on my table, and then I just emailed him the next day and just said, oh, I'd love to come in. And again, oh, nothing at the moment. Just it's all about just hounding them as much as possible, and back yourself. So it's a competitive industry, but just be really confident, which I guess applies to any industry. So I would say there would be a few pieces of advice.
Cool. Thank you very much. Mads, what would you tell yourself if you went back a few years? What advice would you give yourself?
I've got a bit of a list. So first of all, LinkedIn. I was told in an internship like 2015 or something, when I was doing internship as a subject, by the guy at the Rugby Union Players Association, to get LinkedIn. And I was like, okay, got it. And then hadn't touched it for like 4 years. And then now that I'm on it, I like use it as another social media. It's so good for finding jobs, for connections, for uploading your work. It becomes almost your like portfolio. I'm uploading everything I kind of do now. So it's so good for employees to go on and look at and like, oh, look, this person's like not only active on LinkedIn, which employees really like, but they can see your work. And on that, I also would suggest make a portfolio if you're someone behind the scenes, or not even if you're behind the scenes, if you want to be in front of the scenes as well, like Emma, if you want to be in front of the camera and you've done work, whether it's professional, whether it's for uni, whether it's for school, upload your content to like a website. I have a whole WordPress dedicated to myself. And it works because you put that link on a resume and they click into it. And that's actually one of I got this job because my boss said, oh, I went on your portfolio and saw a video you made from your trip to Egypt. Like that had nothing to do with any schooling or anything like that. That was a video I took on to make myself, because I was like, I'm not getting the opportunities, because we all know how hard it is to get jobs. I'm not getting the jobs I want, and I know I have the skills. I'm going to go out of my way and make this video to prove that I have the skills to edit, to make these effects, to put filters, to do it to music, to like screen record, all that stuff. And that really helped me. So having the online portfolio, as I said, whether it's crappy work, whether it's new work that's you've really improved on, I think go for it. I was also saying, make your own opportunities. Just like Emma said, pester, and I did not pester enough. And my mum, who was on here, would tell me every single day, you've just got to email someone. She literally said to me, Emma, when I was younger, email people like Emma Lawrence and Erin Molan and ask if they can help you. And I didn't do that. But it is so important. But I did do little bits and pieces. I remember when I was at Kiss FM and I wanted to do producing, I would stay back on Tuesday nights and help out. And I asked the guy, because he was really nice, if I could just like literally sit there and take the calls on his night show. Did that till 12 o'clock and then got up the next morning at 6 o'clock to do the street team shift. Like, it's sucky because it's free, like you're doing it without pay and it's volunteer, but it looks so good in a resume. And then from that, we got to know each other, and then I ended up helping produce like their one-off Game of Thrones podcast, like for their, like the last episode. Like I got to write out all the dot points, and I was like, this is cool. Now I can put that on a resume and say, oh, sorry, my boss is messaging me. I like produce a podcast, and that's something that I had to make up myself. And I was also going to say about a mentor. I never had a mentor, but if you can get a mentor, get a mentor. I think that is really important. And as I said, Emma said, it doesn't come, like, it might not come now, but later. I think now I was very self-taught, but I would have loved to have someone there to kind of show me the way and guide me and push me in the right direction, and not have me second guess everything I do. And lastly, I just say back yourself. Like, as I said before, be your own point of difference. I didn't back myself for so long. And as I said before, creativity and like humor is my forte. And I somehow sold that to my boss for a sporting club. And that's now working for me. And that is what makes my stuff different. So you really got to commit and just have confidence, and even apply for jobs that you don't necessarily think you have the experience for. My job said you have to have 3 years experience. I was working in a bar last year and on a street team for a radio. I had all the skills, and that's why I had to go out of my way to like make these online portfolios to prove like, hey, I know I haven't had the experience, but look, I can do all this. This is a list of the skills I can do. This is evidence. I can do audio, I can do video, I can do photography. Even if your portfolio is like a little Instagram page, which I initially started and then forgot the password for, something like that, something visual, like employees love to see it, and they appreciate the dedication. So they're my that's my list.
Thank you.
Can I super quickly just reiterate that whole be yourself point, because I just thought of something to do with that as well. You always think, oh, what kind of person or reporter does this organization want me to be, or what do the fans, what kind of reporter do they want? So for example, a lot of people would say to me, I did this show, which is not on at the moment because of COVID, but on Fox Sports, called The Professor, which was basically you just make fun of players and coaches and things that might have happened through the week, they might have said, and it's just lighthearted. It's just a comedy show. So, but a lot of people said to me, it was funny. A lot of people would say, oh my God, that's so funny. It's so good. I love that you're on that. And then other people might say to me, why do you do that? You know, you're not going to be taken as a serious journo. And in the beginning, I'll let that get to me and I'll think, oh, well, if I want to be seen as serious, but then I thought, well, why does it matter what other people think? I'm a person that, if you know me, like I'm going out to dinner with my friends, I love to have a laugh. And I would say that I'm a bit of a larrikin, and I like, you know, in a humorous way, like poking fun at different things. So if that's who I am, like, why wouldn't I go on that show? And that works with my radio stuff too. Radio is very much a lot of banter. When I do sideline reporting for Triple M, it's half banter, half actually reporting on the game. So, and then that stuff helped me to get the stuff at Triple M, because they saw, oh, we like, you know, you showing a bit of personality. So I would think, don't try and be what you think others want you to be, whether it's the public, your family, or a potential employer, because I think that will do you no favors at all. Just like genuinely be who you are, which sounds very simple, but can be very difficult at times.
So do you not think sometimes your opinion is like, do you think sometimes you're not allowed an opinion, or do you always just say, I can express myself? Like,
oh no, even now so on the Saturday show with Triple M, that's a lot of discussion and debate about certain things, and they might ask about, you know, who do you think, there are a lot of things that, you know, the reporting stuff, okay, this person's injured, this person's suspended, that type of thing. That's what I'm across. And I interviewed this person this week. He's annoyed that the club let him go. But then when it comes to an open-ended thing like, okay, should this coach be sacked? I think, well, is my opinion valid? I didn't play the game, or should this player be fullback or, you know, halfback or something like that? I sometimes doubt myself and think, are people going to say, oh, you didn't play the game, what do you know? Well, nothing to do with being a female or male, but just you're a reporter. So sometimes I doubt myself with that type of stuff, but you're also on the show to have an opinion. If you've been working in the industry for like 9 years, I just try to make sure my opinion is not technical about the play, because I haven't played fullback for Australia. I'll leave that to, you know, my panelists who have, you know, and I can comment on something that relates more to my role. So, but yeah, even now still, like, honestly, now I have doubts. I think people are going to be judging what I say. So don't think it's just, you know, when you're starting out. But again, it goes back to just backing yourself, and I guess sticking to your strengths as well.
thank you very much. Now we have a little bit of a computer malfunction, so I can't actually see some of the questions that people have asked. But if you do have a question you'd like to ask Maddie or Emma, just feel free to raise your hand. I think, Liz, you had a question, or you were just saying that Maddie's a comedian.
Madeline should definitely be in comedy. Fantastic. I have a question for both of you. And I actually don't know the answer to this, so it's not a loaded question, but were either of you engaged while you're at UTS in co-curricular activities and events like clubs and societies? And if so, how did that assist you with your career path, if at all? Or were you just at the uni bar drinking? I don't know.
I was too poor to be drinking. UTS netball. UTS netball was like, it was probably the only co-curricular thing I did, I'm not going to lie. But it was incredible in terms of socially, but also it did help me because you do find those connections. As I said, like that way at the beginning, I did like a bit of an internship, which wasn't really an internship. Like I put my hand up and said, hey, do you want to help with UTS Sparks? That kind of got me there, and then I met people who actually like knew so much about Suncorp Super Netball, and that's where I find myself now. And I'm like, I can hold a conversation with people. I could hold a conversation with people early days, being like, yeah, I know what they're talking about, because of that. But then I also started following netball a bit more, and that helped me because I was so confident going into this interview. Like the only other sport I'd be more confident in is rugby league. So I went in pretty confident, and I remember going into my interview for the Rugby Union Players Association a couple of years ago, and I didn't really know anything, and it was so concerning when they're like, oh, can you write up like a piece on blah, 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 and I'm like, sure, let me just Google everything about them. So it's been really good to get involved in an extracurricular activity that ended up relating to my job.
I also was involved in UTS netball. So I really regret not doing anything earlier. I only really did it in my final year of uni, and just because I didn't really know anyone who was involved, but turns out one of the girls then I knew, Alex Campbell, who was involved, got me involved, and I don't know necessarily whether it's helped in terms of whether there was a certain connection with my career, but I made some great friends that firstly encouraged me to pursue what I wanted to. So there are a couple of people there that I remember thinking, oh, I want to go to Fox Sports, I'm not sure, but close friends that pushed me and would say, no, have you emailed yet? Have you done this? So I think those sorts of relationships were very helpful, and And just that aside, the friendships, I'm still friends with so many of them, and still see a lot of the UTS netball people now. And then my sister ended up going there, and now she's friends with a lot of them too. So it's one of those great communities. And I actually also did a lot of the kickboxing classes there at the gym there. And again, same sort of thing. I made people who are really influential in your life, like those that could help you push you with your career, or even just things like Ben, who at the gym would, I've had 2 hip reconstructions now, but at the time when I had my first one, and how much he pushed me with my rehab and stuff like that. So you just meet people that can really have a great influence on your life and who you are as a person. Might not necessarily lead to a job, but can lead to making you a better person. So I would say get involved in as many of those kind of activities as you can at uni.
Can I just add on to that? Like, I agree, get involved. There was like UTS do the 2SER, the radio, the community radio station, and I ummed and ahed and was too scared to do that, and wish I did, because I probably would have got that desired job in radio that I wanted. So like, just rip the Band-Aid at some point and do it. And also, yes, the social friends. Like, I literally live with 5 people that I met through UTS netball. Hey Mel. So seriously, do it.
So to make it in.
Can I just say thank you so much, because I have to go now, but Emma and Maddie, thank you so much. What a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. I'm really glad I joined in. And Bria and Melly, well done with the questions as well. See you guys. Bye everyone.
Thank you.
So I'll go join the netball team after this. I think that's the first making it in the media industry. Anybody else have any more questions I'd like to ask? I can't, sorry, we just can't see the question box. So no, nothing. Right. We answered them all.
So again, thank you, Emma and Mads. You guys have really provided everyone with some real practical and valuable career advice, especially in this time where these kind of events students really appreciate given the situation. So thank you for taking your time. I know you're both very busy. And also thank you to Bree for doing an amazing job at hosting. Make sure you hit up Emma and Mads.
Thanks for having me.
There will be a survey going out to everyone here, so we'd love to hear your feedback. If you'd like to hear more from these guys, or other sort of webinars you'd like to see from UTS Sport. So yeah, thank you. I'm going to click end to the meeting, so the meeting will end for everyone. Thanks guys.
Bye.